Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
The Athletic with a piece, which NFL teams have the best front offices. Which NFL teams have the best front offices, head coaches, and executives cast their votes. It's not writers, it's not analysts, it's not media members. These are actual people within the league. And I always kind of these types of pieces or articles always kind of pique my interest because it's thoughts from people who work with these others and have little insider information, if you will. The top team, probably no surprise, was the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 2 was the Baltimore Ravens. Number 3 was the Rams. And number 4 was the Packers. Says here, if the Packers can climb deeper into the postseason on the heels of the Micah Parsons blockbuster trade, they'll be locked in on this list for the foreseeable future. One executive said, quote, that may be the most impressive group outside of the Eagles over the last few years, talking about the front office staff. There's something to be said for the way the Packers run the organization, like a relative mom and pop shop compared to their corporate counterparts. Since there isn't a traditional owner, the front office has been afforded patience and a longer runway to work through mistakes. It can be diligent with its draft process and bold with its finances without any heavy-handed pressure from ownership. Just consider the way the Packers moved from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. None of those decisions were popular with the fan base. All turned out to be flawlessly executed. General Manager Brian Gutekunst and predecessor Ted Thompson both worked under Hall of Fame GM Ron Wolf, who didn't care what anyone outside the building was thinking. There's a freeing nature that comes with a GM's ability to trust his information and to make the best decisions for the roster at that specific time, opponents and pundits be damned. The Packers' draft record has been incredible for several years, which is why their core is largely homegrown. It's also why they recovered so quickly from the Rodgers trade that sank their books for a couple of years, and now they're viewed as a short-list Super Bowl contender. Another executive had to say, quote, it's insane how well they've drafted. They truly have crushed the past couple of years. By drafting and developing so well, the Packers can supplement their roster and splashy veteran acquisitions, whether it's Parsons, Xavier McKinney, or Josh Jacobs. They also stayed out in front of Love's contract. Quote, I have a lot of respect for what they do top to bottom, an executive said. They've done some things that people questioned, but they do it right. They got the quarterback right. They're really just good evaluators, and they have some highly respected people in that building. So now I'll ask you as fans of the team, you live and breathe with the success of this team. When you hear that from their counterparts, from other coaches, other front office execs for 31 other teams, and you hear some of those quotes, what goes through your mind? Does it change your approach? Does it change your thoughts on your team, on your front office? I mean, I guess for me, I was always very high on the front office. I thought they've been doing a pretty darn good job over the last few years. We talk about the quarterbacks going from a Favre to a Rodgers to a Love now, and Love's, let's be real, Love has a long ways to go before he even gets to a Rodgers or a Favre level, anything like that. Not ready to crown him. Okay? Not ready to crown him. I think Love's a good quarterback, but he's not in that class. Let's pump the brakes a little bit on that, right? But we talk about that, Green Bay's quarterbacks left and right in that, but you kind of look at it, even from a front office standpoint, they've kind of hit on a lot of GMs outside of Mike Sherman. Go to Ron Wolf. Then you go to Mike Sherman, give him the head coach and the GM, which I think we would all agree is probably not was not the smartest decision from the Ron Wolf era. You bring in Ted Thompson, and I know a lot of people had issues with Ted Thompson, specifically maybe towards the end of his tenure and such, but he made a lot of good decisions too. Definitely had his shortcomings. Probably would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more involvement in outside acquisitions, but for the most part was solid, built a good base in Green Bay from a player standpoint. And then you go from Goody, who it's kind of been a little bit of a mixture. I would argue is actually probably a little bit more of a Ron Wolf in terms of moves and such than what Ted Thompson is. Everybody just views him as, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people always kind of view him as a Ted Thompson disciple. But you look at some of the moves, just ask yourself this question. Would Ted Thompson have ever traded 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons, two first-round picks and Kenny Clark for Micah Parsons? I don't think Ted Thompson ever would have done that. Honestly, don't. I don't think he would have. Ron Wolf, I could see absolutely doing it. So you could say, maybe Brian's got a little bit of both in there. I would agree with that. But if you had to trend which kind of a GM is he more towards, I would say he's more towards a Ron Wolf type. But point being, we focus on the quarterbacks and the quarterbacks that they've been able to have for a big chunk of my lifetime. You can kind of point to a lot of the decisions, and we talk, and it's always a topic of conversation amongst Packers fans of different generations. You have some fans that think Packers fans are spoiled. So entitled town gets thrown out a lot and such, and the era, 90s up until where it's at now, there's been a lot of good football, right? A lot of consistent football. Yes, probably should be more championships, probably should be more Lombardi trophies in that trophy case. I don't think there's any arguing that. But from a consistency standpoint, they've been pretty darn consistent. A lot of that has to do with the quarterbacks, but I think a lot of it also has to do with the front office and the people that are making the decisions in that front office. The general managers, and you can also look at the CEOs, the presidents. You go from Bob Harlan. Mark Murphy did some good things too, did a lot of good things. Way early in Ed Policy's career. But you kind of look at the background of Ed Policy and his dad being a lifer and around football. I think there's a lot of optimism surrounding that, and there's a lot of confidence that that trend's going to continue from the CEO president's position as well. So while we always talk about the quarterback stability that the franchise has had over the years, I think you got to look at inside the building too, the front office, the CEO, the president leadership. It starts with that stability. And that's something that Green Bay, I think you could point to the Ron Wolf era, that they've really prided themselves on, and they've really focused on. To put it in a Brewer sense, Brewers, what do? What do they invest a lot of their resources in? Pitching. We always talk about the pitching lab and how they develop pitchers, and the international market, the Cheerios. Now we're going to see maybe a Jesus Mate. They really invest in that. Packers started with Ron Wolf. They've invested a lot in talent evaluation, scouts, and then building from that. That's what stable, solid, good franchises do. So I'm not surprised to see other executives and coaches across the league view Green Bay's front office as a top 5. I can understand why the 3 other teams are ahead of Green Bay. You look at the Rams. They've kind of gone about it a couple different ways. When they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, what were they do? It was like, screw them picks, right? It was, we're going to trade a lot of our picks. We're in a win now mode. We're going to go get Von Miller. We're going to go get Jalen Ramsey. We're going to get Odell Beckham Jr. We're going to go trade for Matthew Stafford. We're going to go in to get this Super Bowl. And they did that. So then they had to pay the piper a little bit after that. But then they go out for the longest time. They're like, no, we don't need draft picks. We're going to trade our top picks. We're going to get ready-made players right away because we're in a win-now mode. But now you look at how they've drafted the last couple years since they've had picks, and they're right back at it. Their defense is full of some young young studs. We saw it last year. And what do? They had a guy like a Devontae Adams. So I could see why, and the Rams are up there, and they've recently won a Super Bowl, more recent than Green Bay. And then you look at the other two. Ravens are on there. I mean, the Ravens, I think, for the longest time, have always been talked about, praised about. You can say, well, they haven't won a Super Bowl yet with a Lamar Jackson and such, and you'd be right. Eric DeCosta has got a really good, he's viewed highly across the NFL, and they make some solid moves over the years. And then, I mean, number one is the Eagles. I don't think there's any debating right now why the Eagles are number one. Look at the moves they made. It feels like almost every single move that they make has been a home run. It's almost kind of reminds a little bit about Patriots at their peak when Tom Brady was there and somebody would become available or there was a trade rumor surrounding somebody. It was like, yeah, it's probably the Patriots. I feel like that's the Eagles now. I feel like they're in that position. But they draft well, too. That's the difference between them and what the Patriots were back in the day. Eagles and Howie Roseman just drafts well. And they build up depth all across the board. Defensive line, offensive line. I mean, they're just easily number one. I don't even think there's a debate. As we start to wrap up the regular season in Major League Baseball, got a few games left to go here. Brewers have 4 left. Some teams got 5 and such. But probably going to see more of these types of content pieces come out in grades and that. And, well, ESPN's got a new one up. Full 2025 regular season grades for all 30 Major League Baseball teams. Where do they have the Brewers? They've got the Brewers as the top team. Number 1. Highest grade. There's 3 teams that got some version of an A, but the Brewers were the only one with an A. The Phillies got an A-. The Toronto Blue Jays also with an A-. What did they have to say about the Brewers? Brewers never faltered. The exclamation point on the best regular season in franchise history. They'll get there with their 97th win, topping the 96 wins of 2011 and 2018, was the 14-game winning streak to begin August. Their run differential of plus 173 easily leads the majors, made even more remarkable considering that season-opening 4-game series against the Yankees when the Brewers were outscored by 32 runs. Haven't really heard a whole lot about torpedo bats since then, right? Goes on to say it gives them a chance to top the plus 174 differential of 1982's Harvey Wallbangers, the only Brewers team to reach the World Series. Pitching, speed, defense, and just enough power. Now, let's see if that formula works in the playoffs. Again, I think the key part in this whole thing is, remember, it's regular season grades, right? Regular season grades. Because I'm sure there's going to be some people like, ew, does that mean that they think they're the best team and they're going to win the World Series? Well, not according to ESPN Bet. Their odds, they've got the Phillies as the top team at a plus 425. Dodgers as a plus 500. The Mariners at a plus 550. Yankees plus 700. And then it's the Brewers and Blue Jays tied at a plus 800. That's according to ESPN Bet, their odds for the World Series. So, there you have it. I mean, I don't think there's anything we can really nitpick or anything like that with the Brewers, right? And that's going to be the biggest question when we get to the postseason is, does this formula work? Does the Brewers formula work in the postseason? It works in the regular season. Obviously, we're seeing this. Number 1 team, most wins in Major League Baseball. But does it work in the postseason, where it's a little bit of a different animal? That's the big unknown. And we're not going to know until we get there and we start playing these games here in the coming days. And even if it does work, if the Brewers go out there and let's say they go to the World Series, how many teams are going to try to copy the Brewers? Maybe some that are kind of in a similar position as them. Mentioned it earlier, but this was about a little over a month ago. The Cardinals general manager was I was watching a little Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, those Cardinals Cubs, and the Cardinals general manager, they were interviewing him during the game, and he even mentioned, got to get back, seeing what the Brewers are doing. Kind of have to get back to doing something like that. A little bit more homegrown, developing those players. But I think it's also making smart outside moves, making smart acquisitions, whether it's trades or free agent signings. You got to have a little bit of a mixture of both. And maybe we'll see more teams try to copy that, but doesn't mean the Dodgers are going to change their way. It doesn't mean the Yankees are going to change their way. The teams that want to spend and can afford to spend a lot of money, they're not going to change their ways on how they're going to build teams. It's not all of a sudden where you're going to see those, high price, high payroll teams all of a sudden say, oh, okay, we'll just copy exactly what the Brewers have been doing. Save a little bit of money here and do this. No, they ain't going to do that. Are you kidding? That's not going to happen. Brewers back at it, 3:10 this afternoon. Going to be, 3:10. Don't touch yourself. 3:10 this afternoon, first pitch. Chad Patrick's going to be on the mound here for the Brewers. And Chad Patrick, to me, is kind of an interesting player to watch here in the next few days. He's going to have a role on this team when it comes to the playoff roster. But I think with the injuries to the starting rotation for the Brewers, it's going to be possibly a little bit more interesting because maybe he has a role as a starter. Maybe he has a role as an initial out-getter for the ball club. Do you trust him over a guy like Mizorowski to get a start in a postseason spot if it comes to that? I don't even think the Brewers know at this point. I don't think the Brewers know exactly how that rotation is going to work out. We know it's Peralta. We know it's Quinn Priester. Knock on wood, they stay healthy. They're all good. We're not going to get a last-minute sort of thing. Yeah, got a little bit of a shoulder issue. They're going to place him on the injured list. Knock on wood, that ain't going to happen. But Chad Patrick, to me, is going to be one of these interesting players to see how they utilize him come the postseason. Maybe it's a piggyback start with somebody else. I mean, they've got you look at their arms, and they've got so many guys on this roster that can give you multiple innings. Whether it's a Chad Patrick, whether it's a Mizorowski, whether it's, heck, even Aaron Ashby, if D.L. Hall comes back, Robert Gasser's now a part of this. In that, if for a third game, for a third start in a DS, would they go that route where it's maybe some shorter outings? Don't know. And I don't think we can really come up with a really good conclusion at this point until we find out more about the potential returns of a Jose Quintana and a Brandon Woodruff. I think that's option number one. They'd like to have both those guys back and both those guys available when it comes to the postseason instead of going with some shorter innings and shorter starts from some of those other guys. But we're kind of in a wait-and-see approach right now. As frustrating as that is, it's where we're at. Baseball fans, though, what are your thoughts on the ABS challenge system coming to Major League Baseball full-time in 2026? I think I don't know if there was any correlation to the timing or any connecting the dots, but I mean, you go back to that first game between the Brewers and the Padres, and let's just say it was a very rough night for the home plate ump. I mean, we probably already know that. We talked about it, but it was a really rough night. And then the next day, this gets announced that the ABS challenge system has been confirmed for the 2026 season. Now, again, some of the basic rules, only the pitcher, catcher, and hitter can challenge. Each team will start the game with 2 challenges apiece. If a game goes into extra innings, any team that starts the extra inning out of challenges will get one challenge for the 10th inning. If they exhaust that challenge, they will then get another challenge for the 11th, and so on. As we mentioned, the batter, the pitcher, the catcher can challenge an umpire's call. No one else, not even the manager. Challenges must be made immediately after the umpire's call without assistance from the dugout or other players. You're going to see we've seen tests of this, right? In spring training and such. You get to see the animated. It's like tennis when they challenge whether a ball's in or out, whether it hit the line. Very similar. It's the animated video. It's going to be shown on the video board and to viewers of the broadcast. If it is a successful challenge, the team retains that challenge. So a team only loses its challenge if the umpire's call is confirmed. So that's where the strategy part comes into play. I mean, you better be pretty certain, especially if it's early in the game, that pitch was either a strike or a ball if you're going to challenge it. And you kind of have to keep your emotions in check as a player, especially if you're a hitter. Say it's 3-2 count, bases loaded in the bottom of the second. Ump brings you up for looking at a strike. It's close. Do you challenge that? Do you not challenge that? And let's say you only have one challenge left. Say you tried challenging something in the first. A teammate of yours did it and you lost that. You only got one challenge left and it's close. That's strategy part, because if you do it and you lose it, you got nothing left for the later innings. So there is a little bit of a strategy incorporated with it. I get some are not going to like it. I get probably longtime baseball fans probably not going to like it. They want the human element. They want the human error a part of the game. And I understand that. And I get that. And there's still going to be that a part of the game. It's just now you're adding, in my opinion, a little bit more of a strategy element to the game. It's not like it's a free-for-all for challenges. And it doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, if you watched it in spring training and some of the minor league games, it does not take a long time. I don't understand why, like, even instant replay, why we have to have these long, drawn-out processes when it comes to replay. That to me is just annoying, especially when it's obvious stuff. I like it. I like it because I think it adds another element of strategy to this. And it puts pressure on those players. I like the fact that a manager can't do this either, because I think that puts more pressure on the players that, hey, you better make sure you're right, and you can't just go off of emotion, because we're going to see that. We're going to see frustrated hitters that maybe want to challenge a call, but they might have to bite their tongue. How many times did we see in spring training where, hitter thought it was a ball and immediately he's tapping his helmet, because that's how you have to signal that. You're going to have to hold those emotions in check a little bit. You're a pitcher. You think you hit that corner. You're going to have to hold that emotions. Same with the catcher. So I like that part. And I like that the manager is not the one making a decision. You're putting the responsibility and you're putting the pressure on the players themselves. And I'm intrigued with that. I kind of like that. I'm curious to see how it goes. And I'm curious to see, especially like big-time moments too, right? Like playoff games. Like playoff games is really you're in some tough situations and some high-emotion games in the postseason. Can you bite your tongue in some instances if it's a close call? Again, manager can't save you. Manager can't take that blame for you. Manager can't cover your behind and challenge it for you. It's going to be on the players. Taking a look at where things stand right now in the Major League Baseball playoff race. I mean, Guys, this is going to be fun wrapping up this final week of the regular season. We've got some insane races going on right now. Let's start off with the American League. So, Yankees have clinched at least a playoff spot. They've clinched a playoff spot. They're still potentially chasing the Blue Jays. They're just one game back from the Blue Jays. Then you got the Red Sox, who they're right now in a wild card spot, but they haven't clinched anything yet. So still fighting for their playoff spots. But how about this AL Central? So Kansas City now is officially eliminated. But the Guardians, who have just been on an insane tear as of late, are now ahead of Detroit. They've got the same exact records, but Cleveland holding the tiebreaker right now. And Detroit is struggling. I mean, last year was kind of like Detroit came out of nowhere and made this playoff push. Now you got Cleveland doing the same thing within this division. And both these teams are going at it. Their series is going to continue tonight, but Cleveland getting the 5-2 victory last night. Man, that's going to be a fantastic one to watch. And still, of all the playoff teams, right now, these teams are still eligible for the playoffs, or teams who have clinched the playoffs. Guardians are the only ones with a negative run differential, -6. That could change, obviously, if they make the postseason. They're probably going to get close to evening that out, or even, getting into the green or the positive of that. Phillies have clinched their division. We know they're going. Miami is not officially eliminated yet. And Miami is taking on the Phillies for this series. We know Miami beat the Phillies last night. So Miami, even though they've got according to ESPN, a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs, telling me there's a chance. They're still alive. They're still in this thing, believe it or not. The NL wildcard race is pretty nuts. So we know right now your division leaders, Brewers, Phillies, Dodgers. Cubs, Padres holding on to the top two spots. Padres, though, they're only 1.5 back now from the Cubs. Why does this matter? Because right now, if the playoffs started, it'd be Cubs versus the Padres. It matters in terms of who's going to host that. So I'm sure the Padres would love to host that wild card matchup against the Cubs. And the Cubs right now have lost 5 in a row. Whereas we know, as Brewers fans, Padres have been beating up on the Brewers here a little bit. And then you've got the Mets, who are currently holding on to that final wild card spot, but it's dicey behind it. Diamondbacks are just a game back. The Reds are just a game back. The Cardinals are not out of it yet either. As we mentioned, Miami's not out of it. Even the Giants are not mathematically out of it yet. So we have got more teams left in the National League that are still alive. American League, we kind of have a good idea. I mean, there's only one more wild card spot left up. It looks like it's going to be Boston, but whoever doesn't win the AL Central maybe has something to say for that. Houston, you're looking at them right now. They're just kind of out of it, a couple games out of it. So it's that final wild card spot. And I know the Yankees and Blue Jays are still battling for the division, and that can ultimately determine who's going to get the top seed in the American League, which is a big deal here too. But for the most part, we have a good idea on all the teams except for a couple for that final wild card spot. National League, we've got our 2 division winners with the Brewers and the Phillies. Padres are still going to try to catch up to the Dodgers. Padres are just 1.5 back from the Dodgers. You got Arizona, Giants still battling. As we mentioned, Cincinnati, St. Louis still alive too. I just think this is another reason why I love sports. We could talk about sports and we could try to predict and forecast what we're going to do. Or what these teams are going to do, what these players are going to do. We have our opinions in that. And we're, for the most part, maybe confident in our opinions, feel good about our thoughts. But then they actually get to the games, and they play the games and they get to their seasons, and it's different. Because we go back to the beginning of this baseball season, and I think a lot of people, I was one of them. I know I'm not the only one, that all thought, okay, for the Brewers to win or for the Brewers to get to the postseason, probably going to have to win the division. Any team out of the NL Central, probably going to have to win the division. I think that was kind of the mindset. And now there's a potential that 3 teams from the Central can make the postseason. We know 2 are for sure. Brewers and Cubs. Reds are right on that heel. Cardinals are a little bit further back, but I think if you ask a lot of Brewers fans, I'm not sure about Cubs fans, I know that's a little bit more of a rivalry, I'd never count out the Cardinals until they're officially counted out. I know it's a huge mountain to climb, it's a little steep, but I'll never count out the Cardinals. I just can't. Not until I see that E next to it where it says eliminated. Then maybe I could feel a little bit better about not worrying about the Cardinals. But if the playoffs started today, what would those matchups be in Major League Baseball if the playoffs started today? Well, Detroit would be the 6. You got Cleveland as the 3. You'd get that matchup right away. Division. You want another division matchup in the AL? You'll have it. Red Sox, Yankees. How about that? How about those to begin the wild card round in the American League? 2 division opponents going at it. Toronto would be your 1. They would face the winner of a division foe between Boston and the Yankees. And then Seattle would take on the winner between the Tigers and the Guardians. On the National League side of things, you've got the 6-seeded Mets going up against the 3rd-seeded Dodgers. And then Padres versus Cubs. Again, that's something to watch here. Padres. Cubs are probably right now hoping, okay, we can't win the division, but hey, Brewers, can you beat the Padres so at least maybe we can have home field for the wild card series? But you got Padres, Cubs. We'll see where that one's going to end up. The winner of that is going to be taking on the Brewers. And then Mets, Dodgers. Winner of that will be taking on the Phillies. That's if the playoffs started today. I have a feeling there's going to be a few changes by the time we talk about playoff matchups come Monday. Just my gut. It's just my feeling, but given how it's changed so much in the last week already, I think it's pretty safe to say that there's going to be some movement